Welcome to the Storj Q3 2018 Town Hall. This is September 12th. And I just would like to read a forward-looking statement before we dive into things. This document contains forward-looking statements about our product direction. The development, release, and timing of any features or functionality described for our products remains at the sole discretion of Storj Labs. And the information herein is not a commitment to deliver any material code or functionality, and it should not be used in relied upon in making purchase decisions. I'd like to introduce our speakers now. We're going to have Sean Wilkinson, who's our founder and chief strategy officer, Ben Golub, our interim CEO and executive chairman, Philip Hutchins, who's our chief technology officer, John Gleason is our VP of operations. We also have JT Olio, who is our director of engineering, John Sanderson, our VP of marketing, Brandon Iglesias, our product manager, and I'm Jocelyn Matthews, the community manager for Storj. We're going to be covering some good topics today. First, we're going to talk about the open source partner program with Ben Golub. Then we'll move to farmer payouts with John Gleason, marketing and branding with John Sanderson. Then we'll have Brandon Iglesias giving V3 updates, which will be very interesting for many of us to hear. Technical demo with JT Olio, and then we are going to go to Q&A. I'm going to hand it off now to Ben Golub with our executive summary.
Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you to all the members of our community for your support and for your loyalty. We're very excited for this town hall meeting. There are a number of exciting topics to cover, but to give you a sense, we're particularly excited that we've seen such progress in V3, which we'll be talking about in a bit. Farmer payments are now caught up and proceeding on a regular cadence. We've launched a new program to great response, which is the open source partner program that we believe will make a significant impact on the amount of usage of our network and demand for our network, including growth in farmer revenue. Some new marketing positioning and programs, which will come in association with the V3 launch. And finally, lots of ways for you to get involved and stay up to date. So let me talk to you right now about the open source partner program. A little bit of background on why we launched this program. As you know, in 2018, we made it our top priority to rebuild our network. We're launching V3, which will be significantly more secure, performant, reliable, and economical than alternatives out there. Our top priority in 2019 will be driving demand and usage onto that network. And we know that in order to drive demand, we want to tap into the biggest networks. The public cloud market is about a $200 billion market, at least half of which is tied to storage. We also know that over 2/3 of the workloads that are running on the cloud are driven by open source. Now, unfortunately, most of the open source companies and projects that are out there do not see a direct benefit from growth on public cloud. And so we believe that this creates a unique opportunity to both benefit open source companies and benefit the storage network. So with that in mind, we've created a couple of different principles for how we're building storage as compared to public cloud networks. As you know, rather than spending billions on building out data centers, we built the storage network by compensating farmers fairly and transparently. We believe the same thing is true on the demand side. If we can fairly and transparently compensate people who drive demand, we should be able to drive significant growth without having to spend hundreds of millions on sales and marketing. Since open source is the biggest driver of cloud usage, and they're not getting compensated right now for growth on the public cloud, why not create economic incentives? So at the Open Source Summit, which was held at the end of August, Sean Wilkinson and I were up on stage and we announced this new program to great response. It's fairly straightforward. Open source companies simply need to create a connector, which is about a day's worth of coding. That coding allows them to allows their users to optionally push data to the storage network. The network tracks usage and returns a meaningful portion of that revenue back to the open source company, providing them incentives to drive further demand. You'll see on the right here the people who launched with us. A few weeks prior to launching the program, we spoke to a few people, and we're really amazed at the response that we got, and that continued after we launched the program. In case you're not familiar with who some of these companies are, these are some of the most significant players in the open source business in terms of creating data. So you notice a large number of database companies, Mongo, the largest NoSQL database company, the number 2 NoSQL database company, the leading SQL database company, the leading, one of the leading time series database companies. All of these database projects not only create lots of data, but snapshot and back up that data, which creates a fantastic use case for V3 right out the gate. We also have partnerships with Minio, with Confluent, who is the leading stream processor, a company behind Kafka, and other leaders in FTP and in Dropbox. Collectively, these projects generate tens or more of petabytes every week that is being stored on public cloud providers. If we can get just a small percentage of that coming to storage, we believe it'll be great for the network providers and great for these open source projects. And what does this mean for you? If you're a farmer, there should be very little impact to you in terms of work required and no impact in terms of the per unit payout. This margin is not getting taken from the farmers, but much more data, much more usage, and hence much more revenue for the farmers. As users, there will be no impact on pricing, no additional work required, but much more functionality available to you as the leading open source projects are designed at the gate to work well with storage. We think if we do this correctly, we'll create a nice virtuous circle across the network where open source will continue to drive innovation. It'll generate demand for the storage network. The network will benefit, and in turn, we'll be able to feed back into open source to drive additional innovation. We're very excited about this program. Let's turn to more immediate issues. I'd like to turn it over to John Gleason to talk about farmer payments.
Great, thank you, Ben. So in the last town hall, we set some objectives out on our payment process. And what we told the community last time was in the first week of the month, we would try our best to get the payouts published and give an opportunity to the community to review those payouts and provide feedback. And then the second and third weeks of the month, we would go ahead and make those payments. So let's take a look at how we did over the last couple months since the last town hall. So with May and June, we got the payouts published on time, but we were a little late in the actual completion of the payments. There were a lot of factors involved, the number of transactions, the price of Ethereum. But as you can see in July and August, we made significant improvements there. So across the board, we've gotten better at the payouts, and we'll continue that trend as we go on. And we expect August, of course, to be finished this afternoon. All right, so I'm going to turn it over next to John Sanderson. Talk a little bit about the marketing and branding update.
Thank you, John. So as Storj Labs has been rebuilding our network, and as you all know, we're investing across the board in all aspects of our company. We're increasing our staff and talent pool. We're restructuring our strategy for scaling to the exabyte range with our new V3 network. And in general, we're all thinking about how to best plan for our short-term tactics and our long-term strategy so that we're ready to set up, to set up ourselves for taking a massive portion of the cloud storage market. Several industries that we're tied to are poised to have massive growth coming in the next 5 to 10 years. Imagine where crypto might be in 5 to 10 years, or decentralization, cloud storage, and of course, the ever-growing passion for open source. With our utility token using the same name as our company and our product, we also think there are ways that we can think about how this impacts referral and word-of-mouth marketing, searchability, and SEO in the future. We have two core segments to our business, the supply and the demand side. We have a desire to focus on building a clean, isolated experience for both of these segments, from the operational side, which are the farmers, as well as the demand side of our business. With some research, debate, and of course, comparing how strong developer tools have been able to successfully take large pieces of market share and how they've isolated customer experiences, we have decided to separate the supply and operational side of our business from the demand generation side. Storj Labs will of course remain as the parent company, and it will remain where our supply side, the storage nodes, remain, which is on storj.io. This will also include where our community and our open source repos will reside. Nothing will change with our token, either in name or its utility within our network. We've been able to acquire tardigrade.io, which will be where all of our customers seeking to purchase cloud storage will go, as well as our channel partners. The FAQs, documentations, tutorials will all reside on those respective domains for each of those segments. I mentioned earlier the phrase storage nodes. We've also had quite a long internal debate about what names we like to have. Many of our names we fell into or just became habitual, but our development team has chosen space technology as a theme moving forward, which you'll also notice in our new white paper, the future updates to our websites, and in our open source code, using new terminology. What we used to call farmers are now going to be called storage node operators. The nodes they operate will be known as storage nodes. What we used to call bridges will be known as satellites, and the people who help run those will also be known as satellite operators. Our CLI and CLT will be called uplink, and the general network, the bigger picture of both supply and demand, will be known as the storage network. We do have quite a bit of work to do on the marketing side from a branding perspective, now that we've got 2 new websites with 2 isolated customer experiences. But in the end, investing in higher quality customer experiences and enabling our future for building a strong demand generation ecosystem will help the storage network as a whole prepare for our position in the cloud storage market. Next, we have Brandon Iglesias, our product manager, to give everyone an update on how the progress is going on V3.
Hey, thanks, Andy. So last town hall, we made a promise to increase our communication with the community to at least once a month. We've been trying to surpass that promise, and we've been publishing development updates every 2 weeks. So if you guys want to stay in the loop with what's going on, just visit our blog at storj.io/blog. In terms of the V3 repository, we now have 23 committers. We've opened over 340 pull requests, and we've written over 35,000 lines of code. So it's really, really exciting, the amount of progress that we've been able to make. Where are we? Well, it's really beginning to look a lot like an alpha. We're using V3 to share files internally across the globe. So we have team members all across Europe and North America, and we have team members uploading videos every day in Germany, and we're streaming those videos here in the States. So it's really, really exciting. As Ben mentioned earlier, we have some new partners, and we've invited them to a private alpha. So we've been working with them to onboard and gather feedback on the V3 network. Notable accomplishments: we've created the storage CLI. It supports basic commands such as creating buckets, removing buckets, uploading objects, downloading objects, creating presigns. We are also completely AWS S3 compatible. So if you would prefer to use the AWS CLI, you could also do that. We added proof of work to the network so that we can protect ourselves against Sybil attacks. We finished the bandwidth accounting protocol, which keeps track of all the bandwidth usage throughout the network to make sure that the storage node operators get paid out properly. And we've increased the overall test coverage and fixed dozens of bugs throughout the repository. Here's JT to talk about what's next for V3.
So what's next is our white paper. We are a few weeks to a month or 2 away from publishing our white paper. And our white paper is going to detail exactly what it is we're building. Currently, we want to invite people into helping us contribute and helping us build V3, but we can't do that until it's very clear what the roadmap is and what we're building towards. So the white paper is our next step. Once we publish the white paper, we want to invite people into our public alpha. Our public alpha is going to be where people can contribute to development of V3, but also be able to start participating in the network. So you can follow along there with our repo, our GitHub repo. That's github.com/storage/storage is where V3 development is happening. We have a lot more to build. Even though we'll be in public alpha, we anticipate doing a lot more development between the alpha and the beta. There's a lot to do. There's Kademlia, NAT traversal, node auditing, data repair, payments, admin console. And we're also building a mirroring service that will allow people to more seamlessly transition from their current cloud storage provider to us. You'll be able to read a lot more about all these different components in our white paper once it's published. This is a great transition point, though, to our demo. And our demo is a very exciting, we're very excited to share it with you. We've pre-recorded it just so that it's unlikely to go wrong. And so we'll turn it over to the video.
Hello and welcome to the Storj V3 private alpha demo. We're very excited to share the progress that we've made on our V3 system so far, and wanted to take the opportunity to demo a little bit about what you can do with the private alpha and how to interact with it, how to set it up, and how to use it. So if you are in our private alpha, the first thing that you'll do is you will download a operating system specific package that includes our uplink service. Our uplink service is a gateway to the storage network. So you'll extract that. You'll have this uplink program and you'll interact with it through your terminal. So you'll go into the directory that the uplink is in, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up the uplink. We need to tell it about which satellite that it should use, and we've set up a satellite for each of our partners. Each partner has their own satellite, but we'll be using a satellite that we've set up for our own internal use. That satellite, we have to give it the satellite address, and that satellite's address is satellite.alpha.storj.io, port 7777. And we're going to use a throwaway API key for this demo. Each partner gets their own API key. Each account gets its own API key, but our API key for now is just ABC123. Okay, so we're going to run setup. All right, the next step is to see what we have. We've made no buckets right now, so the first step is to make a bucket. So we're going to make a bucket called test. We now have a bucket. And we're now going to upload a video into it. So let's upload a video. Videos. Let's upload the storage intro video into the test bucket. So that was pretty easy, and now it's in the test bucket. But one thing I didn't show you is I have this network visualizer running in the background back here. And if we run this copy again, you can see exactly just how the upload works. We're going to split the data up to a bunch of nodes streaming, and without buffering the entire object and doing any sort of pre-processing, we're just going to encrypt and send the data out to a bunch of different nodes concurrently. So this is happening immediately. This happens for all different sizes of files. This isn't anything special about anything that we're doing in the demo today. It uploads to a bunch of nodes in parallel, and that's where the data is stored. So, so you'll notice that we've got this file, we've got this list of buckets, we have a bunch of different commands you can run, ls, make bucket, remove bucket, rm, and the most important thing, at least for us initially, is S3 compatibility. And so what that means is if you have a program that already supports Amazon S3 as a storage backend, we want our uplink to be a drop-in compatible gateway for your program to be able to use storage instead of Amazon S3. So I'm going to demo that next. So we'll call uplink run. An uplink run will output some configuration information, and so the next step is I've already got the AWS command line interface installed, and we're going to configure the AWS command line interface to use our local uplink. So we're going to run AWS configure. We're going to use this access key. We're going to use this secret key. My AWS command line interface has a bug that requires a region name, so perhaps your AWS command line interface doesn't require this, but that's just the throwaway. And then we don't support multi-part uploads yet. So we have to configure our Amazon command line interface to have a really high multi-part upload threshold, but multi-part upload support is coming soon. So we will eventually support multi-part uploads, but we don't support it yet. So now that we have this configured, we can tell Amazon S3 to use our local endpoint. And we can interact with our storage system. So we can look at our bucket, we can see our video in there, we can copy our video back out, copy it here. We can make sure that it's the same file as the one that I uploaded originally. It is. And we can also pre-sign a URL and stream the video in our web browser. So here's a URL. We'll open this in our web browser here. And we support on-demand seekable video streaming.
The cloud wasn't up here. Threaded, encrypted, and spread across the network. You'll get paid by users who need more.
Video streaming is supported out of the box with our private alpha. And so we're just very excited about where we are and how far we've come. And we're, again, excited to be able to share this with you. Our roadmap, we're going to be getting to public alpha shortly after we're able to take a look at the feedback that we get from our private alpha. But this is where we are. We're excited about where we are, and thank you for watching.
Okay, so that was the video. And so one thing that's worth pointing out in the video is that video streaming works all throughout the entire stack. So in the demo, it wasn't totally clear that you could seek ahead to a part that wasn't buffered, but you are able to seek to unbuffered parts of videos in what we've built. So that's pretty exciting. And so now I'd like to turn over the time to Q&A.
Great. Thank you, JT. So we have some Q&A questions. Some of them came in ahead of time. We also have a couple of live questions that have come up during this conversation. So we're going to answer the community questions first that we already have slides for. I'm going to hand it off to Sean Wilkinson.
Hello, Storj community. So we're getting to my favorite part here, the question and Q&A. So the first question that we have is, will we see the ability to publish read-only files in the future? And JT is going to answer that for us here.
Yes. One of the major features of V3 is actually rich delegated access control with a number of different properties around each file. Files will be able to be shared read-only, read-write, append-only, delete-only, perhaps. There's a number of rich ways to mark files for delegated access control. We're using a technology called macaroons to support allowing people to share access with other applications and other users in only the ways that they prefer.
Awesome. Thanks, JT. We have one more for you.
Yeah, this question is similar.
So can we upload files to the Storj network and then allow others that we give permission to also download them?
Yes, so same type of answer. Our rich delegated access control allows people to share fine-grained permissions to allow people to access files. We're also going to be posting and creating some gateways to allow people who don't even have our library or client software to be able to access files.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so this is a good question. So what is the roadmap to decentralize the centralized parts of the storage system? So there have been a lot of improvements to the storage network and the storage architecture. As some people may remember, in the version 2 of our system, we had something called the bridge, which really helped coordinate the network and help provide a kind of better experience to users, and provided a lot of help on the functionality to make the network function and work. Now, we intended for this bridge to be run by multiple people, but just due to the difficulty of setup and incentivization, it ended up just being run by us, and that wasn't really great from an architectural perspective. But we've kind of learned from that, and in the V3 system, we have a new system we're calling a satellite, and this also kind of helps organize sections of the network and help provide a really great user experience, and kind of speed up some of the other portions of the network. And this satellite is something that we're taking a lot of time and effort and being very deliberate in approaching to making sure it's very easy for other people other than ourselves to run. And we'll be making sure that other people in the V3 network are running this satellite portion other than Storj Labs. And so, through kind of that architectural change, we've made a really big step into making the storage ecosystem really robust and really decentralized. We still have some additional research that we're doing in this area. For example, kind of being able to sync metadata between these nodes and really make it really, really robust. But we're really learning and researching and growing in this area. But let me tell you, it is a pretty big difference between our V2 system, which, had some issues around the bridge that I think we've solved a lot of them, with our new satellite system in V3. So when you see the white paper, when it's released, I think a lot of those questions will be answered. So next question is somewhat similar. What are the current vulnerabilities with respect to what would happen if the storage company or team ceased to exist in the future? And how could users gain access to their data in such a case? So, by having, other entities other than Storj Labs run these satellites nodes that really help kind of organize the network, if we were to, blink out of existence or disappear in the future, having these other operator nodes would kind of eliminate the cases where Storj Labs would be the single point of failure for people gaining access to their data. Again, we still have, more research to do in that area, but just the simple fact of other people in the network other than Storj Labs running these satellite nodes, which help organize the network, is going to make a really big impact in terms of this, really bad edge case. Number 5. So will users be able to migrate data from the current network to network V3? So we're going to have John take this, John Gleason.
Yeah, so for data migration, we anticipate the data migration will be possible following the platform beta release with payments enabled. And we expect that to be somewhere in the Q1 2019 timeframe. For most users, the most efficient process will be to create a new account on the V3 network and upload their data, downloading it from V2, just simple self-migration. But there are other cases where for users who require assistance with data migration, we'll provide a dedicated support channel for that to make sure that the transition from V2 to V3 is as smooth as possible.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, next question. In V3, will there be any limitations on the number of nodes that one farmer can have? Maybe that's best for JT. Awesome. Simple answer. Awesome. Okay. Will V3 require farmers to keep their computers on for 24/7? And if it will, this is quite a large cost for an amateur farmer. How will Storj, what will Storj do to provide enough incentive to make it worth the investment?
So this is another great question. Yes, it is true that farmers need to stay online and have good uptime. A big proportion of our network success is going to be the durability of files. We want people who store files with us to be able to rely on the network to keep their files. And even though the repair system will keep track of files and make sure to repair and replace files as storage nodes come on and off the network, the more nodes that go off the network, the more repair we have to do, which increases the amount of bandwidth cost we have to pay, which decreases the amount of people who will be able to participate. So it's a really critical aspect for our network to make sure that nodes have high uptime. So the incentive is if you don't have uptime that's enough uptime, you won't get files. Your storage node will not receive data that you'll get paid for if your node is not online enough. It's sort of a must be this tall to ride type requirement. In terms of how storage will provide enough incentive to make it worth the investment, our pricing is pretty reasonable, we believe, in terms of farmers. One of the things that us aggressively minimizing the amount of bandwidth usage allows for is diluting the amount of storage payment as much as little as possible. So if we have a certain amount of income, I think our current pricing is $15 a month a terabyte. That's the total amount of income. And let's say we were going to, some of the overhead costs get involved there. But let's say we take the raw storage costs and split those up across the farmers. The more bandwidth we use, the more storage nodes we use, the more that dilutes the payments. And so let's say, ultimately, let's say that a farmer is making $1.50 a month a terabyte. The more bandwidth we use, the even less payment that they would get per month. And so we want to aggressively minimize bandwidth usage and the expansion factor of how many nodes we have to use, so that we can pay farmers as much as possible. And so we're looking right now at about $1.50 a month a terabyte. And we realize that some current farmers, that may no longer make economic sense to them. And so there is sort of a self-selection property. But yes, we're expecting people who that is an interesting number to be able to keep their computers on for 24/7.
Yeah, uptime, very important. What do you say?
Very important. Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys. Let's answer some community questions. So those questions that we were just going through were questions that were pre-submitted, but we also have some that were received during this broadcast. I'm going to start with the first question, which is, when will the farmers who joined the waitlist be invited to the alpha of V3? I'm going to kick that over to John Gleason.
So for the farmers who were invited in the...
So this is for the farmers who joined the waitlist. We'd like to know when will they be invited to the alpha of V3?
Oh, great. Yeah. So as we transition from the private alpha to the public alpha, one of the key steps in that process will be to have third parties hosting their own separate storage nodes. And so for those nodes, we anticipate that'll be in Q4 of this year. So sometime between October 1st and December 31st. And we'll add those, begin adding those on from the waitlist, and doing our best to prioritize, the people who have been farmers longest and the first in to be first added to the network.
It is the case that during our alpha, we're not necessarily expecting our payment system to be complete yet. So alpha participant storage nodes will be volunteering.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's good information. Thank you. I'd like to move on to the second question, and I think this is a question that's appropriate for JT. Will the V3 network download a single shard or piece from different farmers and locations in parallel? This would spread bandwidth usage across all farmers instead of just the one storing the shard. And I can repeat that if you want. I know it's a little bit wordy.
No, that's a great question. The answer is yes. They will be downloaded in parallel. And this is something that there will be a significantly greater amount of data available about how this works once our white paper launches. At a high level, the way that our system works is we break files up. We use Reed-Solomon encoding to split up the pieces concurrently and in parallel. And so this is something that you'll actually also see in the demo. The Reed-Solomon encryption happens in a streaming fashion where all of the transmissions for uploads and downloads all happen in parallel concurrently immediately. And so stay tuned for the demo that'll get posted here in a few minutes, and stay tuned for our white paper coming out in the next month.
That's great. Thank you. We have a third question, which is, I'm going to ask this of John Gleason. Will you still have a 90-day contract timeout for files on V3 like the current network?
No, not at all. So the V3 network will operate for all the world like most of the other common storage platforms you see, Amazon or anything else. And basically the files can persist indefinitely or until deleted.
Okay. I have a question for John Sanderson, our Vice President of Marketing. And the question is, why did you choose tardigrade? On the surface, it seems unrelated to cloud storage.
It's a great question. We just saw that come through live on YouTube, so thank you for asking that question. When we look at most dev tools and all the great mascots they have out there, you'll notice that very few of the mascots are really related to the products. I don't know that there is a great maybe mascot that's directly related to storage, but kind of in our exploration of domain name choice and also trying to figure out how we can maybe start incorporating a little bit more of a mascot, we got lucky that tardigrade.io was actually available. So in the hope that we were able to find a good domain name and also incorporate a brand mascot, we thought it would be fun to choose that route. If you guys haven't had the chance, tardigrades are quite the amazing organism. They're extremely resilient. They're durable. They are found in all corners of the earth. They're distributed across the globe. They can survive in the vacuum of space, so the bottoms of the Mariana Trench, the tops of mountains. Great brand attributes that also apply to decentralized cloud storage that we thought were just a fantastic pairing. So we've already had some fun exploring the brand development side of things. We brought some kind of clever fun stickers to Open Source Summit, kind of as a first-time trial, and very well positive received. There's great articles out there, and of course, when we start updating more and more on tardigrade.io, you will start to see more about the reasons why we chose that.
Great, thank you. I have a question for John Gleason now, which is, will you be looking at building relationships with channel partners?
So we're already aggressively looking at building relationships with channel partners. We started first, as Ben pointed out in the first part of the program, that open source partners have a natural affinity for what we're doing. And I think over the course of the next several months, what you'll see is we'll be building those same relationships with decentralized applications, general technology partners, and also systems integrators. And so, yes, and for those wishing to sort of get early conversations going from a partnership perspective, please go to storj.io/partners and fill out the form, and we'll definitely follow up with you.
That concludes the Q&A. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to the community. If you would like to follow us, please find us on GitHub and Twitter, and please be sure to check out our white paper. It contains a lot of really great information about anything you might be interested in. Thanks again, and see you next time.